to have an opportunity to trial this on an actual fire or a disaster. And then the following summer, I did have an opportunity to do it on a series of fires, actually. So typically, a VOST activation or an incident activation is 10 days. So teams work 10 days on, 4 days off. But in this instant, due to the circumstances, we were able to work across multiple fires over a 21-day period. So the team worked for an extended period of time. And also, it worked out that we ended up activating for a fire right in the same vicinity of the Carlton Complex fire. So it gave me a chance to see how much of my information that I'd already classified could be reused because the sources were redundant. The sources overlapped. So I was working with the Pacific Northwest Team 2, which is a federal Type 1 team. Type 1 teams are the highest level of response in the U.S., responding to the most severe incidents. So we were activated for the Wolverine Complex, which was just west of the Carlton Complex burn area. And they were assigned to the fire because of the events of the previous summer with Carlton. They wanted a Type 1 team in place and ready to go if things went bad. So a little bit about the Wolverine fire. It was fairly small, and there was not a lot of social media conversation, and that actually gave me a chance to work with the VOST team to figure out what our operating procedures were. So over the days of the Wolverine fire, I was able to work out a process where we would look at both the filtered results and the unfiltered results to validate that I was getting what they wanted. We could also, the classification scheme that I used was a shared data set in a table that they could edit and adjust based on what they wanted. It was dynamically driven. And so there wasn't much that happened. It gave us, and also another part of the analysis, we were able to break out the embedded content. So we worked out a workbook format where I would divide the content in a way that in a large-scale disaster we could start distributing the effort. And then on the morning of August 13th, one of the incident commanders came into the room and put us on standby alert. He said that the conditions were bad and that he wanted everybody available to be ready in case of an emergency. And a couple hours later, he posted this photo. So there was a dry lightning storm that occurred that started 22 new fires. And one of those fires was burning over the hill into the town of Chelan, where the incident command team was based. And so they were in the process of packing up their tents and relocating, and at the same time that the fire was burning into the town. So the VOS team took over communication for the fire as well as social media monitoring. So at this point, the tweet volume went up considerably. And so I was working as quickly as I could. It was my chance to try out this new strategy. So I was extracting the data every hour, dividing up the content, and each of us had an account we were managing the communications for while also monitoring social media in a distributed way. And during this, I was able to every hour keep up with the new material and log the locally relevant information. And then finally, at the end of this activation on the 18th, we got a message from Incident Command that Twist, which was one of the towns that burned in the Carlton Complex fire, that things were escalating and that first responders were moving out of there as quickly as they could in retreat. And I added terms, so we didn't know whether we were going to be assigned to the fire or not, so I added terms to the data collection just in case. And I went to lunch and came back, and within an hour, we had over 10,000 new tweets. And when I did the filtering on this, and the filtering was ineffective. It had a lot of the emotional support tweets that happened. There were fatalities. in the time that I was gone. And so it gave me a new data set that I can use to look at methods for filtering that can help in those circumstances as well. So this is a graph of the filtered and unfiltered moving from Wolverine to Chelan, and you can see that the filtering was pretty effective at producing volume that I could manage. So moving forward, what I'm working on now is I work at CU in an organization called Earth Lab. And part of my research is working on building a classifier that will help classify these tweets in a way that we can then implement the filtering. And I've pulled together a team. I have a web developer friend, and we're looking at doing hackathons moving forward where we can start building an application that can implement this in real time and start getting feedback from emergency responders about how it works and how to make it work better. So that's where I'm at. I'd love any feedback that you might have.
Okay. Thank you.